we must remember that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and that we are not free until all of us are free. To Pastor Lynette Patterson, distinguished and capable pastor of Reedy Chapel, African Methodist Episcopal Church, spiritual caretaker of this, the Mother Church of African Methodism in Texas. We thank you for your stellar leadership amid these consequential times for our church, our nation, and our world. To Bishop Ronnie Elijah Brailsford Sr., the 136th elected and consecrated bishop of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, in the line of Bishop Richard Allen, and the presiding prelate of the 10th Episcopal District of Texas. Thank you to you, Bishop, for the privilege and opportunity to serve in the sharing ministry with the people of the 10th District. Certainly to President Joseph R. Biden Jr., the 46th President of the United States of America, at whose hand this hallowed day became our newest national holiday. Mr. President, a special word of gratitude to you for your distinguished service to our nation and to your contributions to our ever-expanding story. It was because of your leadership that 40 black women received lifetime appointments to the federal bench. The most by any president in American history. And it was through your nomination that Ketanji Brown Jackson was confirmed as our nation's first black woman to serve as United States Supreme Court Justice. As has been mentioned, this past March, I had the great honor of witnessing my wife, Eulise Rees Waters, as she became a member of the bar of the Supreme Court. And I cannot tell you the overwhelming joy I experienced of not only seeing her receive this well-deserved honor, but of seeing her receive that honor as Justice Jackson was seated on the bench. And most certainly your faithful service as Vice President to our nation's first black president, and as President to our nation's first black Vice President, that you are, sir, a notable part of our collective American story. Yours has been a consequential life of service, and again to you I extend my gratitude. I would like to dedicate the remainder of my remarks to the memory of my great-great-grandmother Martha, the oldest relative known to me, who was born into slavery in 1844, and for whom liberation came that first Juneteenth day, as well as to my 97-year-old grandmother, Naomi Forbes Williams, who grew up down the street with Miss Opal Lee in Fort Worth, Texas, and who, as a child of her era, similarly faced the daily threat of white supremacist violence, but who, as a student leader, organized students to resist, and who marched alongside Thurgood Marshall in the fight for justice. Indeed, as I stand tonight, I stand upon their shoulders. There is a groundbreaking book that has long fallen from American popular memory. When it was first published in 1839, it set off a national firestorm, selling a stunning 100,000 copies in its first year. This seminal book inspired works like Harriet Beecher Stowe's epic Uncle Tom's Cabin, and it is frequently quoted in speeches by the likes of Frederick Douglass. This book inspired thousands of people to join the anti-slavery movement in America as abolitionists. The book was compiled by 3 white abolitionists, Theodore Dwight Well, his wife Angelina Grimke, and her sister Sarah Grimke. The manuscript was meticulously created by researching, clipping, and categorizing thousands of newspaper articles and advertisements seeking the return of fugitive slaves. These articles documented the mistreatment of enslaved people all across America. And the Grimke sisters organized these clippings by themes. They labeled them according to food, labor, clothing, treatment of the sick, cruelties, floggings, tortures, brandings, and maimings. American slavery as it is. Testimony of 1,000 witnesses offered a brutal account of American slavery, an institution that John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, once referred to as the vilest that ever saw the sun, and as the sum of all villainies. Among the book's multiple entries included such testimonies as Mulatto Boy, 10 years old, a scar over his eye which was made by an axe. Negro Jim, a piece cut out of each ear, and the middle finger on the left hand cut off at the second joint. Mary, a black woman, scar on her back and right arm near her shoulder, caused by a rifle ball. And Negro girl Mary, good teeth missing. The letter A branded on her cheek and her forehead. That branded A certainly stood for the Adams family that owned her. They wanted to mark Mary as their property. But of these many horrors, for me is Angelina Grimke's own account that I find particularly gripping. She notes witnessing gashes so deep in the back of an enslaved girl that she could fit her fingers inside of them. She notes that other enslaved blacks were beaten so severely that their wounds set forth a putrid odor, that they would be kept out of the house for weeks on end because the smell arising from their wounds was too horrible to be endured. It is essential that we recover and remember these beatings, these lynchings, these maimings, and these assaults. For it is only by recovering and remembering these atrocities that we can genuinely appreciate the immense joy experienced by our forebears that first Juneteenth day, a day of Jubilee. Yes, it is only by remembering the horrors of chattel slavery that we can even begin to attempt to understand the joy wrought on June the 19th, 1865, as Union Army General Granger and 2,000 Union soldiers, the majority of whom were black, heralded the enforcement of their emancipation. For them, our forebears, they received the word of emancipation as an answer to their most urgent prayers and to their deepest longings. It was for them the end of a seemingly endless nightmare, the finale of unfathomable evils. They raced to reunite with family members that were separated from them on the auction block. They hurried to establish their own schools and to teach others how to read and write. They even ran for political office to advance their people and to perfect our union. First-hand accounts here in Galveston provide a clear vision of the celebrations of the formerly enslaved. On January the 2nd of 1866, a Galveston newspaper reported that the colored people of Galveston celebrated their emancipation from slavery yesterday by procession, notwithstanding the storm. Some 800 or 1,000 men, women, and children took part in the demonstration. A meeting was held in the colored church on Broadway. Cheers. The holy place in which we are gathered now. Torrential rain could not dampen their joy. They experienced pure joy, unrelenting joy, unspeakable joy. Yet tonight, as we are gathered here in this sacred place, we are afforded a longer view of the arc of history. Our forebears rightfully rejoice for what they believed was the onset of freedom. But in reality, they were free-ish. At best, they were freedom adjacent. The fullness of their pure, unrelenting, and unspeakable joy was short-lived. Swiftly, the whips of their enslavers were exchanged for the nooses of the Klan. General William T. Sherman's order allocating 400,000 acres of land divided into 40-acre plots for the formerly enslaved never came to fruition. Slave codes were exchanged for black codes. Slave quarters gave way to redlining. Jubilee was passed over for Jim Crow. Now, especially now, 160 years later, we must contend with the question of whether we are actually free or free-ish. How can we claim to be fully free while our neighbors are denied habeas corpus, arrested in broad daylight by masked men, boarded upon planes as our ancestors were boarded into the holds of ships and disappeared to foreign lands, never to be heard of again? How can we claim to be fully free as families are ripped apart, children torn from the arms of their parents, as our ancestors were torn from each other upon the auction block? In Texas, how can we claim to be fully free when the state that gave birth to Juneteenth also leads the nation in voter suppression and poll closure? And how can we claim to be fully free when women are denied health care, bleeding out in hospital parking lots and emergency rooms? Friends, how can we claim to be fully free as our civil liberties are daily diminished and our social safety nets are being dismantled? We live in a time when there are threats to the freedom of the press, threats to the freedom of speech, threats to the freedom to peaceably assemble, threats to the right, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. declared, to fight for what is right. And it's not just the dismantling of our rights born in blood, and even the dismantling of programs. It's the attempt to erase us, to scrub our collective memories, to purge our national consciousness of the truth of our history. They're doing it by the decommissioning of names of boats dedicated to the memory of such heroes as Charity Adams Early and Medgar Evers, to the banning of books, to the forced firing of tenured faculty. No, we are not free. We are free-ish, and each passing day we are being made less free. Still, this is not an hour to cower. This is not a moment for us to fret. For as Frederick Douglass declared, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are men who want crops without plowing the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the roar of its mighty waters. Power conceives nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. These are consequential times. We follow in the hallowed tradition of instigators, agitators, and prophets who faithfully walked into moral headwinds and emerged victoriously on the other side. We know their witness, we know their words, and we know their song. Biden, they tell us that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. They tell us that we are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We may be free-ish now, but if we keep on fighting, one day we shall be finally free. Now, let's be clear. Our freedom shall not be won with a podcast or a cleverly worded post. Our freedom shall be secured as it has always been secured in our embodied resistance to injustice. Come here close. We must be willing to put our bodies on the line for justice. Even as they face dogs and fire hoses before, we might have to face the same. Will there be threats? Certainly there'll be threats. Will we cower? Certainly we will not cower. Yes, we have come over the way that with tears have been watered. Yes, we have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughter, out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. But it only bends if you bend it. We must keep bending the arc towards justice. We must organize. We must march. We must resist. We must vote. And we must remember that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and that we are not free until all of us are free. So we will not rest until health care and housing are human rights. And we will not rest until our rights are fully restored. And we shall not rest until our families are reunited, and we will not rest until the telling the truth about our history is not treated like a crime, and we will not rest until freedom and justice is no longer rhetoric but reality. No, we cannot rest until we create a nation where our children and our children's children will be finally free. We know this song and we claim it as our own. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Turn me around. Turn me around. I'm going to keep on walking. Keep on talking. Marching up the freedom land. We going to be all right. So let's keep working together. Let's keep building together. Let's keep hoping together. Let's keep loving together. Let's keep resisting together. Let's keep organizing together. Let's keep marching together until that great day where justice flows like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream, and we shall all be free.
You're right. You're dead right. There's 10 heavenly fights.